NFL Week 2 game previews. Eric joins me as he has every single week for the last few years. We're going to dive into all of the games on Sunday and on Monday. We're recording on Thursday as the Thursday night game has already started, so we won't talk about that one. But Eric, last week, you and I went through every game, and this year, every week, we're going to do our mythical circa entry. And together, we were 3-2 to start. Not bad. Very easily could have had a 4 in 1 week, but when you're season long, we'll take 3 in 2 weeks all the way through, right?
Yeah, I mean, you'll take 3 and 2. Just want to come out making money. I feel overall as a unit, you and I did really well last week.
Yeah, we sniffed out a lot of the good dogs and like some really like overpriced favorites for sure.
It would have been better if we could have got the Texas money line and the what's the other money line we
Falcons.
had? Falcons money line. But you know what? We live and we go on. So
yep. We'll hit all of the Sunday games. We're going to start and we're going to go through the lines with our friends that are over at Betfred. And we start with Carolina and the Giants. So, Eric, this number right now settling around 2. The Giants are a 2-point favorite at home. They open up the season 1-0 after defeating the Titans. The Panthers had the Baker Bowl. They lose on a 58-yard field goal as time expires. On the Panthers side, Robbie Anderson had 5 receptions for 106 yards. Baker looked like a guy who hadn't played a whole lot and taken as many reps with the first team as he should have. He was fumbling the balls a little bit. 1 turnover-worthy play, 1 big-time throw. Offensive line didn't look great. Rookie tackle gave up 2 sacks and 4 pressures. Of course, that was to Myles Garrett. The Panthers gave up 140 yards rushing to Nick Chubb. They had the second worst rush defense overall in opening week, allowing 217 yards. Now they actually face a Giants team who rushed for 238 yards last week. 164 from Barkley, the most of any player last week. Just 57 yards for McCaffrey, so he was a little quiet. Let's go to the Giants side. The Giants, with their new regime, they went for 2 late to win the game. I thought that was kind of cool. You go for 2 late, you kind of inspire, you're on the road, and your team makes a big play for you. And if you lose, looks like a bad move, you hit it, so it looks great. Weird advanced stats in this game. Only the Chiefs and Bills had more yards per play than the Giants, 6.79. But the Giants had a negative EPA on the day and just a 36% success rate on plays. Daniel Jones was awful. Barkley was great. Jones had a negative 0.29 EPA per dropback, better only than Dak through Sunday's games. He was sacked 5 times, strip sacked, and he only completed 29% of passes for more than 10 yards down the field. That was the 4th lowest rate of the week. Barkley, week high, 164 rushing yards. 22% of his carries were for 10 or more yards. He also had a 33% target share as a receiver and 112 yards after contact. 3 explosive runs, 4 first down rushes, and a touchdown. He was awesome. So give us some of your analysis on this game or some of your early thoughts.
Certain things I look to do is fade Daniel Jones at home, and especially look to fade Daniel Jones when he's a favorite, and especially when he's a home favorite. As a favorite, 29% against the spread. As a home favorite, 25% against the spread. Playing at home, he's only 39% against the spread. This guy just doesn't cover when he plays in the Meadowlands. And let's be honest, the NFL is all about selling low and buying high. Oh, sorry. Selling high and buying low.
There we go. And, strike that, reverse it. There you go. You did the really long thing. Yeah.
You made a great comment when you're on my live stream earlier this week about how Baker looked a lot better in the second half once he got his feet wet.
Yep.
It's to the point now where I really think that this week 1, like, you need to have these starters get a little reps, because in week 1,
nobody plays in the preseason games anymore.
Yeah.
And that's killing these teams at the start of these games. Teams used to play 1 or 2 preseason games. Your guys would play a half or a couple series, and they just don't at all anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, they don't. It was great. Don't get me wrong. I've been the biggest Saquon Barkley fan in the world. It was great to see him, do well. But if you rewatch the tape, it was 2 big runs. On both runs, he was caught from behind.
Yep.
Personally, I look at it and I know the Panthers gave up an insane amount of yards to Nick Chubb, but that's Cleveland. That's Nick Chubb. Cleveland, one of the better offensive lines. Besides Thomas, I really don't think anyone in this Giants offensive line had a great game. I think the Panthers front 7 is a lot better. I don't think Daniel Jones is going to take advantage of their issues in the back. And I mean, when you watch it and when you see everything that had to happen for them to win that game, Bullock missed a field goal.
Of all of the
Saquon Barkley, it should have been stopped. The guy missed the tackle in the backfield going for 2.
They had the Football Outsiders this year has a new game-winning expectancy statistic, and of all of the games last week, the teams that won, the Giants were the least likely winner of their game based on if that game was simulated repeatedly 100 times, they were the least likely winner of a game that won last week.
Yeah, and you know what? It is what it is. They won the game, but I think the Giants are a little too overvalued right now. I don't think they should be, because this number's moved 3. This was 1 in for Carolina. I absolutely love the Panthers here. I locked them in at 2.
This probably will be one of our 5 plays then. We'll jot it down because I'm fine. I'm on the Panther side here absolutely too. I think these two teams are pretty close to evenly matched. I would lean Carolina, but I just think that New York's getting a little too much value right now. And the points that you mentioned about Jones at home, not great. I think it's a little bit better of a matchup too for Carolina overall. So we're both leaning on the Carolina side +2 here. Anything else you want to mention about this game, fantasy wise, DFS stuff, positives, negatives?
One thing I'm really into is snap share. When you and I were myself and Kyle were talking on the BTV show, and we mentioned how Carolina has an elite receiving group with Shenault, Marshall,
Anderson.
Moore, and Anderson. Looking at the snap share, Moore and Anderson played every single down. So maybe this isn't as big of a share as we initially thought, and those two are the clear alphas.
So game 1 on Sunday in the books, Panthers, Giants. We're both leaning Panthers. Let's move to Colts, Jags. So right now we see Indy -4 on the road at Jacksonville, a rematch of the last year, and the Jags kept the Indianapolis Colts out of the playoffs. How many times straight has Jacksonville beat Indy?
I'm looking at.
Is it 7?
Yeah, I'm looking at it right now. Wright is 1-6-1 ATS versus the Jaguars. He's 0-3-1 ATS when the spread is more than 3.
So on the Jaguars side, we saw Robinson and Etienne almost even in splits as far as their snaps are concerned. Etienne was leading the way in the first half, as we would have assumed, because Robinson was coming off an injury. Etienne was the number 1 back. Then he fumbled at the end of the half on a play that would have been a touchdown, and he got lit up. So Robinson ends up getting the bulk of the snaps in the second half. He looked really good, and he got a lot of touches, out of the backfield and catching the ball too. Kirk, who you talked quite a bit about last week, he looked very good. He caught 6 of 9 passes for 117 yards. He had 50 yards after contact and forced missed tackle. On the offensive line, they struggled a little bit. Guard Ben Barch had a game-high 5 pressures allowed. They were ranked dead last by Pro Football Focus in week 1 with 4 of their 5 starters allowing multiple pressures. Only Cam Robinson earned an above-average grade as a run blocker. Now, we can also take that with a little grain of salt because Washington has a pretty good defensive front, right? So we can counter that and say it played against an above-average defensive front. Did have 13 penalties for 90 yards. And, I mean, they were leading the game in the fourth quarter. But that loss was their 30th in their last 34 games. Just
Yeah.
saying that out loud is just nasty. 30 out of their last 34 games they've lost.
I will say this. We need to keep my notes on the Jaguars say front seven much improved.
Yep.
Lawrence is actually getting coaching. There's going to be times where he looks really good and times where he makes mistakes that a rookie quarterback makes. I feel if you look at the class from 2 years ago, the one that looked the best on Sunday was Trevor Lawrence. He looked like he should have looked. This team's just going to shoot themselves in the foot. They're going to make some bad losses.
Yep.
I think the thing that kind of that we need to kind of talk about is the Indianapolis Colts, man. Like
that's a weird game. It's a weird game because everything that you look at in the box score says the Colts should have won that game by 20. They dropped 2 different touchdown passes in the end zone on different drives, and those drives ended up getting them 0 and 3. So instead of 14, they got 3. They had 90 plays compared to 68 for Houston. 517 total yards compared to 299 for Houston. 5.7 yards per play compared to 4.4. Over 9 more minutes in time of possessions. But it's just a weird, they missed the field goal. They missed in those drop passes, 2 turnovers, 7 penalties for 89 yards. They just look like a team for a guy that gets talked about as a good coach. He does not prepare his team very well coming out of training camp at all.
We saw that fourth down
every year.
4th down and 1. They ran the Wildcat with Nyheim Hines.
Like that's
like
just
that play doesn't make sense. They were down 17.
You're not gonna. I know they went to overtime, and I know they went to almost to the end of overtime, right? But
this team,
Matt Ryan's throwing 50 times.
Yeah, this
like
team.
Matt Ryan threw 50 times.
Yep, the tackles didn't look good. This team needs a second wide receiver. The kid Pierce they got is banged up. He may not play. Pittman has the potential to be good, but they just need someone that can take some stress off of Pittman because Pittman's not at that level yet where he can be like, I'm trying to think of someone, a one that can just create separation at will. You know what I mean?
No.
Like he's not at that level.
Especially because he's going to get double and triple, especially now after what's happening with their wide receivers dropping passes early. So it's one of those things where shooters that are open or missing shots, you're gonna let them make them till they beat you. I would not lay the number with the Colts. Let me put it this way in this game at all. I'm definitely leaning more to the Jags side. I don't know if it's a game that I'm going to play and make one of my plays for the weekend, but in a situation where I'm in one pool where you have to pick every game with the point spread every week, I definitely would pick the Jags at over a field goal here.
I got the Jags at 4.5.
Yeah.
It's come down a lot. Like when I looked a couple hours ago, I think it was at 3.5.
So they cut Blankenship too, right?
Yeah, Blankenship is gone.
He missed a 42-yard field goal with 1 minute and 57 seconds remaining. They waived him on Tuesday.
Can't be missing game-winning field goals in the NFL.
You usually don't lose games
it's at 4 right now.
Don't win games when you have 517 total yards, 161 yards rushing. They were down 20-3 in that game. They could have gotten blown out, but when we get to the Texans, we'll talk more about them. That's the one problem with Arthur Smith and with Lovey is that they are great overachievers as a coach, but then they get to a certain point where they just start getting so tentative and playing it safe and they're really old. I thought
Lovey should have went for it.
I know, I did too, because what are you at the end of the game?
Yeah.
What are you playing for to lose if you're the Texans, right?
Yeah, I think he should have went for it. I was a little disappointed that he didn't go for it.
Me too. So Colts, as far as there's nothing on the Colts side, on the DFS side that I'm looking at. Kirk was really good last week. Obviously Robinson and Etienne is the situation to monitor with the running backs there. Anything else you want to mention with these two teams?
No, I liked what I saw from James Robinson. I felt bad about what happened to him last year.
Me too, because we liked him a lot the last couple of years. He's a hardworking guy that deserved his opportunity, and he might have gotten a little lucky by maybe Etienne's misfortunes early in the half. So we'll keep an eye on that one. Let's go Miami, Baltimore. This is a fun game. It's a pretty kind of intriguing game early in the year. We have both of these teams who won last week. Miami beat the Patriots. Baltimore beat the Jets. Are we seeing right around 3.5 or so, right? Baltimore's a 3.5 point favorite here.
Yeah,
over
right.
under 44.5.
Yep.
So on Miami side, obviously they bring in some new pieces, new coaching staff. Tyreek Hill comes in, 8 catches for 94 yards, 12 targets. Edmonds dominated the snaps on third downs. He led the team in rushing share, snap count, and route participation, and target share among running backs. So don't worry too much. If you're looking for a back there, I would still lean Edmonds. Tyreek looks like he's getting the ball short because getting the ball long is not an option here.
Yeah.
With Tua. It's just don't expect to see Tyreek way down the field, because there were 1 or 2 times when I was rewatching the game where it was like, it wasn't like his body language was bad, but you could just
Sounds great.
he would run a play down that he normally may have run for Kansas City, and then it was like, I got no shot. I got no shot getting the ball down here. So it'll be a little different for him. I thought you might like this quote from PFF. Talked about the Dolphins offensive line that showed a little bit of improvement from last year, but they said, quote, "The Dolphins offensive line is still 5 mall cops trying to stop a looting spree."
That's pretty good.
I'm picturing that now in my head, like the rent-a-cops there.
That's
I thought
pretty good.
was great.
My thing with this is Harbaugh 8-1 ATS versus the Finns, 55% ATS at home, 70% ATS as a favorite of -4 or less. Tends to cover these small numbers. The big thing we need to monitor what's going on with Ronnie Staley. He did not practice today. Also, we need to monitor what is going on.
And because if he hasn't been able to return yet, and James, who was filling in for him, he got hurt.
Yep.
So he's out. So if it's not Staley or not Stanley, it's going to be a third string left tackle. Yeah, so that could be a serious point of weakness for them right there.
Dobbins practiced in full today, so it looks like he's back, which is good. I don't know. Like I'm still not buying this Dolphins team. The big
I don't. Not a ton of pressure from the defense, but they did combine.
They got 3 turnovers.
It was so Dolphins-y again, right? They did have 5 forced incompletions, and
they look good. The defense looked good against a Matt Patricia and Joe Judge offense. It's kind of pump the brakes a little bit.
Yeah, they were number 1 against the run last week in run stop win rate. So that's a positive. Against Lamar, now keep in mind, they played Lamar really well last year.
Uh-huh.
Miami beat them in that game. Was it on Thursday night? When they had their safeties come up and sort of help stop the run game a little bit. Same defensive coordinator from last year. Then they had great success against Baltimore. The Ravens offense only had a 44% successful play rate. Lamar was sacked 4 times in that game.
Yeah.
So,
somebody did tell me Lamar wants to go to Miami. So Lamar could be trying out here for Miami.
Right. You talked about when we spoke the other day on your show, he didn't run a whole lot in some situations that looked like normally he would have taken off and run. Overall, they didn't run the ball well as a team. Just 3 yards per carry.
Well, I think that's more with the
line.
Their run scheme is just so advanced, and they just literally just brought Kenyon Drake off.
So it just takes.
I think it just takes so much time for these guys to comprehend, because their run scheme is just absolutely insane that they run. It's totally different than anything else in the league.
Now, Lamar, so that's 63 yards. That was the fewest total rushing yards in a game that Lamar has started. He only had 6 carries, 17 yards. Watching it back again, he talked in the offseason about how he thought he maybe needed to bulk up a little bit. He looks a little big, like a little pudgy. I'm not saying like fat. I'm not trying to fat shame anyone or anything, but he just looks like meat. And sometimes you put a little weight on, it takes a little bit to like you just don't have as much burst. On top of the fact the contract situation, I think post game he was like eating popcorn and stuff and like continuing to talk about how he wants to put on more weight. And he kind of looked a little bit hefty. So I'll be keeping an eye on that for sure. He did throw the ball pretty well though. He had 3 big time throws and a 72.4% adjusted completion rate, which accounts for drops. So I don't really know if I want any of the receivers to count on, like Duvernay and Bateman. You shout out to you, because when we talked about which wide receiver you would have preferred, you mentioned Duvernay, who caught 2 touchdown passes, but he only played like 50% of the team's offensive snaps on pass routes. So that's not going to sustain. I don't know if Bateman's probably more sustainable as far as like season wide, but where you drafted these guys and what their value may return, Duvernay,
like,
right?
If you're in a deep league, he's a good option.
Yep.
Big guy to store.
Because he only needs like one, like we saw with him. He's a flyer guy, so one catch could be a touchdown for him.
This team's never going to be a a pass heavy attack.
Yeah, like a prolific passing attack. So Dobbins, you mentioned, we think he's coming back, right?
He's been practicing in full, so if I had to guess, he would definitely be playing.
Missed all of last year after the ACL injury in the final preseason game. He returned to practice full this week. As a rookie in 2020, he was he had the 13th best rushing grade among running backs, according to Pro Football Focus. 805 yards, 9 touchdowns. Just a couple other things to point out on this game. Last week, Baltimore was 26th in adjusted rush efficiency against the Jets, 30th in yards before first contact. That O-line was not getting much push, and you mentioned the backs seemed a little bit confused about where to hit the holes and who to follow and when to follow. The head coach for Miami, he's more of a specialist with the run game and a run game coordinator. He was the run game coordinator for the 49ers. Mm-hmm. So this game, the numbers already dipped too low for me, I think, to play it, because I missed like getting it at a better number. But this game smells like and really feels like an under type game to me, because
it feels like an under type game. Like if this dips down to 3, I'll probably take the Ravens minus the 3. But at the 3.5, it's just at this dead zone right now.
Especially if we think it's going to be low, because Miami was 27th in neutral situation pace last week. Mm-hmm. You think because they have Tyreek Hill in here, they're going to be this high flying team. They're not. That they're going to be a slow, deliberate team. And that's exactly what Baltimore is too. Think about Miami. It took a 4th and 7 touchdown for 42 yards right before halftime, and then a defensive touchdown for them to get 20 points.
They didn't look great. Like I said, like everyone's kind of a little bit hyped up on him. Hill saying the coach has big balls and everything, It's just, look, this is a perfect selling high on Miami spot. We just need that number to drop down to 3 right now. Both
starting tackles have missed practice this week. They had to sign another tackle. Whenever you see them bring in another like that, that tells you they're worried that these guys are not going to be able to play, or these injuries may be serious. The Baltimore defense last week, they were really good before garbage time. 47%. So basically half of the Jets' yards came once the Ravens were up by 21.
Yeah. When the box score is a little deceiving.
Yep. Because the game was just over.
Yeah.
And that's when the Jets had a couple long drives. So anything else you want to mention on this game, Eric, before we move along?
No.
Let's go to Patriots Steelers. So we have the 0-1 New England Patriots. They just lost to the Dolphins that we were just talking about. You have Pittsburgh, who's 1-0. They win a game in overtime against Cincinnati. That is just such a Pittsburgh way to win. So Mac Jones had some back spasms. Reportedly, he's going to play and looks fine. For Pittsburgh, Najee Harris, high ankle sprain, but he only played 77% of the snaps. Which I think he only played less than that, I think, one time last year. He was always on the field, but he looks like he's fine and he should be ready to rock and roll. Freiermuth led the Steelers in receiving yards, was 2nd in targets. So he's like a solid tight end, if you're not wanting to spend up on like the top tier tight ends, because with this quarterback situation, I don't know how deep down the field they're going to be able to go a whole lot. They're probably going to need a lot of short
Trubisky can
passes.
throw it down the field though.
Yeah.
Like,
That's a good point. He can sling it, and he's not afraid of doing it. I just don't know if with the offensive line, if they're going to have the time to do that often enough. The offensive line only gave both running backs 1 yard before contact. One.
Offensive line has issues. You know, we've been saying this for 2 years now. They never addressed it, and it's showing.
TJ Watt injury, obviously,
Watt
for Steelers. So how about this one? Watt, they're 0-4 in games played without Watt since he's been drafted.
Geez. I'll say this too. How about Mika Fitzpatrick? That INT that blocked
That's incredible.
Blocked field goal or extra point. I can't remember spacing and what it was. Yep. Like it's just
block extra point at the end of the game.
It was just a great effort by him. But at the end of the day, you can look at it like this. You forced 5 turnovers, you went to overtime, and you won by 3. This team definitely has some issues. Najee, and this was my worry with him, without Big Ben there, who couldn't throw the ball down the field. He's not going to get as many targets. Now he's hurt. He said he wanted to play. Tomlin's quote was, "Hold on, big fella." Yeah. So I'm not really sure they're going to play. The line just seems really fishy to me. With that being said, you know,
has it moved around at all? Right now, we're seeing Patriots -2, so they're a 2-point favorite on the road. This is probably now that it seems like Mac's going to play.
I mean, you know, but like Tomlin, 82% ATS as a dog, 66% ATS.
This is another just Steelers spot. Doesn't it feel like just like a Steelers win this game? I'm not that impressed with the Patriots. I mean, again, the Steelers are not good. They punted last week 8 times. Their offense averaged 3.7 yards per play in regulation. Trubisky's 5.1 yards per pass attempt, 3rd lowest average of any starting quarterback last week. 55% completion percentage rate, 5th from the bottom. I mean, not a lot of great, but the Patriots did not look impressive at all. That offense is not good, and I don't like the guys behind it either. So I'm not expecting it to improve a whole lot. You know about Patricia. It's Judge is the other one too, right?
Joe Judge, like probably the 2 worst coaches. My thing is this is, you know, another thing, Tomlin's 7-0 ATS as a home dog after covering the previous game. I mean, all the trends say to take the Steelers.
Patriots 1-5 ATS in their last 6 road games. Yeah. How about this one? The Patriots have not started 0-2 since 2001.
And maybe that's it. Maybe it's just the Belichick love in the market.
Yeah, I mean, because it's 20 years, but this isn't all of those Patriot trends. That's why I don't like going back any farther than just about a year, because anything with Brady is way different than if we're dealing with Mac Jones here.
Yep. Well, they do have that 1 year when Castle was the quarterback. So I guess you can kind of use that a little bit. Yeah, I mean, this game, this line just seems like a trap. If it seems like a trap, I'm just going to stay away. So I have no action in this game.
Lots of movement in the offseason from the Patriots offensive line. They still don't really look all that comfortable. They didn't run the ball all that well against Miami. Steelers scored 17 points off Bengals turnovers. And they still just did not look all that impressive. Yeah, I mean, I'm leaning Pittsburgh, but I'm probably going to be it's not my number 1 game, but I'm leaning Pittsburgh. It definitely feels like a Pittsburgh type game. Let's continue along. We go Jets at Browns. So the Browns are a 6.5-point favorite in this game. Jets 6.5-point dog. The total has dipped under 40. Now it's 39.5. We have the Browns, who, you know, had a rookie kicker. York hit the game winner from 58. They ran the ball pretty well. They won the time of possession by almost 17 minutes in that game. Hunt had 11 carries, 46 yards, a touchdown, and then another receiving touchdown. Peoples-Jones led the team in routes run, targets, receptions, receiving yards. So if you're looking for a receiver,
that was kind of surprising to me,
right?
You know, that was kind of surprising that he was
the number 1 looking like. I mean, who knows if that's going to continue, but just those are the types of things that we look at, right? Snap count, EPA, like those are the things that are sustainable. Scores can come and go. Like points scored can, but you look at the things that kind of week to week normally will stay. So he was on the field and running a lot of routes. On the Jets side here, we have Michael Carter, who had 10 carries for 60 yards, saw most of the third down work and the goal line and short yardage work. But this offensive line, man, they're in some serious trouble right now. They combined to allow 20 pressures last week. They signed Brown in the offseason to a 2-year, $20 million contract, and now he's hurt. So Becton's out, Brown's hurt. So the problem is you used money to sign this guy, and now he's hurt immediately. So it's not like they have a whole bunch of options out there. The Patriots just signed a player for offensive line depth who hasn't even played since last October, didn't participate in any training camp or preseason to their practice squad because there's just no options out there right now for offensive linemen. They had Flacco through 59 passes.
Well, I mean, the game did get a little out of
Sure, it was behind, but just 59 when you look down and see Flacco throwing that. They were 2 for 14 on third down last week.
Yeah. Which is bad, which is really, really bad. Chubb looked flipping amazing like he always does. I am trying to pull this thing up, but it's not letting me, so I'm sorry. It is teams that lost game 1 by 10 or more are on the road and are dogs. 62% against the spread.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think, what's the number that you dive in on this? Is this one of your plays?
I'm waiting because I think there's going to be money coming in on Cleveland.
Me too, because once it hits 7, I'm fine.
Yeah, I want a 7.
Mainly just because this version of the Browns, they're going to keep teams in the game. Like they could have put the game away early, but they don't go down the field. They just run the ball. They're not going to take shots. So they're going to keep a lot of teams in games if they're up with Brissett. I just think any number that's like 5 or above with the Browns, I'll probably almost always go the other way right now because I don't think they should be that big of a favorite over anyone.
And then another thing is last 3 years, teams that didn't cover the previous week playing a team that did cover 57% ATS. Last 2 years, 62% ATS. Last year, 72% ATS. The value and the trends say to bet the
Jets here.
The Jets, but I need a 7. This is one of those things you got to kind of like. You got to kind of figure out where your buying point is, and my buying point's a 7. So right now I'm just kind of sitting back.
Here's what's funny. At 7, I'm playing the Jets. I actually played the Browns as a survivor this week because I looked at the other survivors. I think the Browns will win this game, but I don't want the Browns to lay a big number. The other survivor ones are big numbers this week that are a little bit scary. And I kind of wanted to stay like everyone's going to go for those big numbers. They're going to go for 49ers. I didn't know if I wanted to play them right now against the Seahawks. I didn't know about the Rams against the Falcons. That's another big number. I think the Bills, Titans, that one kind of scares me a little bit. So some of those games are a little scary to me. I thought this was sort of a maybe not going to be one of the more obvious ones. I feel confident about the lines, really. That's what I just don't think the Jets are going to be able to stop this offensive line in the run game enough to win the game. But I
think with how the Browns play, it's unrealistic for them to be expected to cover a big number.
No, never. Like I said, never. Anytime it's big, especially like this, it's one of the first things you learn. If there's a number that's somewhat big, like 6 or above with the low total, you almost always want to take the dog.
Yeah.
Let's move along. Anything else in this one?
No.
Let's go Tampa Saints. So Tampa and Saints both 1-0 to start the year. Tampa beat the Cowboys on Sunday Night Football. Dak got hurt in that one. And the Saints come back and win a game that they were down big early to the Falcons. And the Falcons absolutely spit that game out. So some things to mention in here. Probably one of the games where I have like some of the most notes on. On the Tampa side, Chris Godwin injury. What do we know right now about that, Eric? Okay.
He shouldn't have been playing in the first place.
Yeah. Julio Jones tied Mike Evans for the highest route participation on the team. Now, what was kind of interesting about Julio to mention, his issues the last couple of years have been staying healthy. Brady reached out to Julio to recruit him, and apparently Julio's been on the TB12 system to try to stay healthy. So he's changed up some of the things that he's done, and like his body and the way some of the stuff that he's eating, and maybe that'll help him stay in the lineup a little bit more this year. But I like knowing that Brady recruited him, reached out to him, and feels like someone that he really wants to succeed here with him. And we saw how much Brady was doing this with Antonio Brown too. So I think Brady might continue to look for Julio. He looked a little bit better than I thought he might look. The key with these two teams is the matchups here, where the Saints have beat Brady all 4 times that he's been with Tampa. I think they beat him 7 times in a row now, because it comes down to pressure. Brady's only been pressured on 20% of his dropbacks as a Tampa Bay Buck. Against the Saints, 32. When he's pressured against the Saints, Brady is 18 for 42, 3.8 yards per pass attempt, no touchdowns, 3 interceptions. With no pressure, clean pocket, 81 for 120, 7.3 yards per attempt. So it's, this is an interesting game. What's the number? Like, are you in on this?
I bet it at 3. I would wait right now. There's a lot of injury stuff going on in this game.
Yeah.
This is going to be a thing that dips between 2.5 and 3. There's plenty of apps that you can set a little alert where you gets to 3. I think at 3, that's the buying point. Brady 0-4 ATS versus the Saints as the Bucs quarterback. Winston 3-0 as the Saints quarterback as a dog. 54% against the spread as a dog in his career. I know everyone's saying, "Oh, this offense from Tampa Bay looks so good." I thought Fournette looked good, but I don't really value the Cowboys defense that much. I think their Cowboys defense is a little bit overrated. I really don't think Brady's 18 for 27, 212, one TD, 1 pick was that impressive. I wasn't that impressed at all by the Bucs offense.
I wasn't either. My only problem is I was less impressed with the Saints defense. That was the unit that I thought was going to be an awesome unit. They were not very good. And maybe they were looking ahead. I'm going to probably stay away from this game because it's a little scary to me. Mainly because there are a couple worries on the Saints defense now where I'm not sure if they're maybe a little bit less like dominant than we thought going into the year. That's one of my only worries about this matchup. I don't know if it's me being high on Tampa. I'm probably going to stay away. Yeah.
And Brady struggles when teams bring pressure and they play man-to-man.
Yep.
That's what the Saints do. I think the Saints...
Tampa's backup rookie left guard and a backup center. Also, Donovan Smith not practiced this week. He looks like he's going to be able to go, but will he be 100%?
Yeah, they got some injuries. So this line, we could see fluctuate. Kamara didn't practice this week.
The Saints were dead last in yards allowed per rush attempt before first contact. They only pressured Mariota 10% of his dropbacks. Now, I'll give them a little bit of a mulligan because it's hard sometimes when you play a guy like Mariota right off the bat. You really don't know exactly what they're going to do.
They had a linebacker shadowing him. So
it's different than playing Brady, who's not going to be moving at all.
It's a completely different offense. And Allen's kind of showed he has the blueprint to beat the Bucs. So I like it at 3.
My only problem is though, I understand why. It just seems I'm taking one of your angles here. I'm worried that everybody's on this Saints game as like their underdog of the week because a lot of the numbers lean to the Saints, right? Just the things that we're talking about, like the basic handicaps of the game and the fact that they've owned them. I feel like it's almost too easy at the Saints +3 at home. And I'm hoping I'm not outthinking myself because this is something that you do. And now I'm doing it after watching you do it sometimes.
But also it goes to the trend where the Saints didn't cover, the Bucs did cover. So it goes to that trend, like I talked about last 3 years, 57, 62, 72% against the spread. Small divisional home dogs. I love it. how I bet it's Saints or nothing. I was able to get the 3. It's at 2.5 right now. I would wait. If it gets to 3, I'd invest in it. Right now, in my eyes, it's kind of a dead number. If you like the Bucks, maybe play the money line because it's always a little funky laying these like weird numbers on the road. Weird stuff happens, especially in New Orleans.
Saints secondary has 2 new safeties and a new third down linebacker, so that's why they weren't quite all together last week. Jameis as a starter for the Saints, 6-2, 16 touchdowns, 3 interceptions.
He looks pretty good,
But what's weird in those games, just 180 yards per game passing.
Yeah.
Last week they only had a 40% success rate on runs. The O-line was not moving Atlanta around. So they're probably not going to be able to run the ball against this Tampa defensive front, which
I'm telling you, Grady Jarrett is the most underrated player in the NFL. This guy is like one of the most underrated players in the NFL, and we'll get to it. Your boys have some interior line issues.
Yeah,
he's going to eat against your boys. I lost my train of thought. I'm sorry.
No worries. So when they were forced to throw last week, that was when the Saints started playing well. Jameis Winston, his completion percentage was 12% above expectation. Only Josh Allen had a better percentage above expectation. And what I like about the Saints receivers, they fit each other pretty well. When you look at
Olave, I love what I saw from Landry.
Well, because
Landry hasn't been used like this, I don't think, ever in the NFL.
You got Olave, who's the stretch the field guy. You've got Landry, who's the possession, and then you've got Michael Thomas, who's like that little bit of everything, the big body who will go get go get you a touchdown. So they all slot really nicely with their roles. I kind of like the way that they stack up. Tampa was dead last in run stop win rate last week. They didn't allow big explosive runs because that's not Zeke. So will be interesting. Maybe their defensive front looked a little better than it did when you dive into it individually. We'll see how that plays out this weekend. Fournette, you mentioned 127 yards last week. Anything else? Taysom Hill, 81 yards on 4 carries.
That was a fluke. Stay away from Taysom Hill. Don't worry about it.
The Falcons should have won this game last week. They fumbled at the Saints 14 with 3 minutes left in the third quarter. That took points off the board for them. Then they fumbled again that later in the game that caused what ended up causing the field goal. So Thomas, he looked good. 5 catches, 57 yards, 2 touchdowns. Did have a couple drops early on. You mentioned Landry. We had safeties played.
Landry looked phenomenal.
It was great. Yeah. 114 yards, 7 catches. Yeah. They kicked a 51-yard field goal with 19 seconds left to win. 4-0 versus Brady in the regular season. How about all 4 wins by 9+ points? They beat him 38-3. That's the largest defeat Brady has ever suffered. They beat him 9-0. That was the first time he had been shut out in 15 years. So they've just seemed like they've got his number for some reason. He's only completed 61% of passes, 6 touchdowns, 8 interceptions, 2 lost fumbles, and got sacked 13 times. Yep. But this team did allow 200 yards. The Saints did allow 200 yards rushing last week. You're on the Saints. I'm going to stay away. I just think it's a really intriguing game. All the handicaps lead me to the Saints.
It's an interesting game, and maybe it's one of those quote unquote sharp traps that the books kind of bank in on people to take the Saints. So
let's go Washington, Detroit. Eric, Washington beat the Jags last week. Your Detroit Lions, they were down, but they played pretty well against a good Philadelphia Eagles team. You have Jamal Williams, who saw double-digit carries. Swift is dealing with an ankle injury he suffered late in the 4th. What do we know about that?
I didn't practice today. So Washington can't stop the run. If Swift plays, or actually whoever the Lions starting running back is, I'll be on their over prop rushing.
Yeah, Williams, he had double-digit carries, so that's a positive. He only had 28 yards rushing, but
he was their goal line back.
Yeah, so the carries were the key that you want to see. Decker and Ragnow dealing with some injuries too, though, on the offensive line, right?
Personal day. He's fine. It was just a personal day. Frank the Tank, he should be ready to go. Washington, their defense just didn't look good. I didn't really like what I saw from their defense. Wentz, balls were still sailing. Dotson made a great catch. It should not have been a touchdown. They should have lost the game to the Jaguars. Jaguars totally gave that game away. I will say this though, my boy Curtis Samuel.
Excellent.
7 targets, 19th most scrimmage yards last week. They are using him kind of as we thought they would, kind of like the Debo guy because he was the original Debo. Lions do struggle against the run. I don't trust Antonio Gibson at all. I think they're going to use him more as a passing down back. Maybe a Curtis Samuel, if he has like a rushing prop of like a 15, 16, maybe look at that. I really want to play the Lions here. Because if the Lions to be anything this season, this is the game they have to win. If they don't win this game, it's the same old Lions. This is the game
you're right.
they have to win.
They're at home, short favorite here in a winnable spot in a winnable game. This is just something you have to do. You absolutely have to win this game. You mentioned Samuel. Yeah, he had Samuel actually had 8 of 10 catches, 55 yards, touchdown, 4 rushes for 17. Like the other Samuel, like Debo. He was studly.
He was the original Debo.
Yeah.
We forget that. He was the original Debo.
Keep an eye on Logan Thomas. He was targeted on 20% of his routes. If you need a tight end or like a dart throw, he should see more and more time as he gets healthier. Allen, Sweat, and Payne combined for 15 pressures, 3 sacks. Wentz, we got the good and the bad of Wentz. 2 interceptions in the fourth quarter, a third that got taken away by a penalty. But then he threw some incredible passes.
I wasn't that impressed with him. I thought some of his passes sailed. I thought Dobson made a insane catch and one.
Yeah, he just giveth and taketh. Pretty good on third down, right? 7 of 10. You mentioned Dotson, 2 touchdowns on 5 targets, 2 of 3 catches in contested situations. Offensive line struggled a little bit. Turner and Schweitzer earned really low pass blocking grades. Scott Turner called a pass play on 70% of plays when the score was within 3 points, which is 10 percentage points above the NFL average.
Tells you what they think of Antonio Gibson.
Yeah, no, you're right. And so that's what I mean. I don't think these wide receivers might be guys to lean on this year, much more than their running game. So we may see that. When they led by 4 or more, they still threw the ball 63% of the time, which is 12% more than the rest of the league. Yep. So they look like they're going to be operating just at a higher frequency here. Anything else you want to mention about this game? Washington, Detroit. I told you I like Detroit at this game at anything under a field goal. This is a spot Detroit has to win. Can't start 0-2. Yeah. No more moral victories.
They have to win this game for their season to be anything.
Let's go Atlanta versus the Rams. This one is it's moved quite a bit, right? This was about 13.
Yep, it's moved
and now it's down to 10.
And the main thing is your boys have offensive line issues.
They sure do.
Center.
Gave up 7 sacks, 4 hits, 13 hurries from 50 snaps, 48% pressure rate, the 7th worst single game mark for the Rams in the last 8 years.
Mm-hmm. I like the Falcons in this spot. Offensively, they were very creative with what they did. They have a couple backs, Drake London. I will say this. I do think there's value right now. I saw it at 10-1. Drake London be the offensive MVP. Let him in yards, let him in targets. I think that'd be a good future to kind of lock in right now. I think Grady Jarrett is going to eat against this offensive line. Arthur Smith is going to call good plays. He's going to control the clock. He's going to get the run game going. And I think that Atlanta has so many options and so many playmakers now that they're a real tough team to be able to guard. It wouldn't surprise me. There's this guy Franks who used to be a quarterback at Florida back in the day. I think I had him as the 5th best prospect coming out a couple years ago. They converted him to a tight end. It wouldn't surprise me if we see a little trickery right here with a tight end throw. Mariota can extend plays. Anything over 10, I'd be invested in the Falcons. And also we got AJ Terrell on Cooper Kupp, one of the best cover guys. I absolutely love that matchup. I think this could be the game where we look to play Allen Robinson props.
Yeah.
If he doesn't go get it here, he ain't gonna get it this year.
Couple things just from some of last week's stuff. Falcons, Patterson had 22 carries for 120 yards and a touchdown, but Damian Williams played on 7 of the 10 first snaps. He saw more time than Patterson on first down and second downs and third down, but he got hurt in the middle of the first quarter, did not return, potentially out a couple weeks. London looked good, 5 catches, 7 targets, 74 yards, did have a drop. Their offensive line played really well, Atlanta. 37 pass blocking snaps. They allowed pressure only 3 times.
They're better than people realize. They're
lots of play
better.
action. They ran play action 18 of 37 pass plays. Now, this was one thing I didn't like. They were up 2. They take an intentional delay of game with a 4th and 1 on the New Orleans 42. Then they punt. 1 4th down model swung the game 15 percentage points on that one play.
Yeah, like in that scenario, I'm all about going for it, especially when you got a mobile quarterback like Mariota. Do a little RPO, little run pass to London. I'm a little worried about Kyle Pitts, 36 PFF grade, 7 targets, 2 receptions, over 19 yards. If he was being talked about as, one of these best tight end prospects ever, and he has not looked the part yet at all.
No. The Falcons blew a 16-point lead. They had 8 more first downs than the Saints, more total yards, more total plays. They won the time of possession. They also had a 63-yard field goal attempt blocked as time expired. Their defensive line had 4 sacks, more than any game they had in last year. They only had a total of 18 sacks all of last year. And for Mariota, he had some good plays, but he fumbled late in the fourth quarter, 3rd and 1 from the Saints 42 with 1:41 left. If he gets a first down there, the Falcons could have taken a knee and run out the clock.
Yeah.
On the Rams side, you mentioned there's weaknesses on the offensive line. You have Ramsey got torched by Diggs. Stafford got sacked 7 times through 3 interceptions. They got outscored by 21 in the second half. They allowed 7.1 yards per play. Looks like Van Jefferson should be playing, and Henderson is the back that you want. He was basically an every down back, 82% of snaps, 81% of rushing attempts, 78% route participation. Akers only played 18% of snaps and only 13% of the rushing attempts.
Tried to tell everybody.
You did.
Yep,
you were on that before.
And the Chargers just gave up a 99-yard pick six.
So
99-yard pick six.
Oh yeah. I was watching that right off to the side. That's why they were going in about to take the lead, and they threw a pick 6 all the way. So that's just amazing how games flip just quickly.
I'm just on a dime.
So anything else you want to mention on this one?
I think Allen Robinson is a good play in DFS. If you're trying to win $1 million, he's going to be really low owned. I want to see his player props. I think he's worth a punt on the player props just because AJ Corral is going to be covering Cooper Kupp.
Let's move to Seattle versus San Fran. This number has moved quite a bit now. Where are we seeing it now?
I'm seeing it down at 9, 8.5, 9. It's literally like all over the place. I got it like this. Geno Smith, he's covered his last 7 games. Ultra impressive. But, how are the 49ers? Because you got to kind of give the 49ers a pass of what happened.
Because of the weather.
They're basically playing in Lake Michigan. You know what I mean? You got to kind of give them a little bit of a pass.
You expect more from them, but it's hard to just use that as the only piece of like a data point in a sample size.
But I think the bigger thing that people aren't talking about is with the game on the line, Lance dropped back and he overthrew someone by 10 feet. I think that's the bigger thing that stood out to me. I'll give you a pass for the game. But look, if you're as good as everyone says, that's a basic throw you got to make.
You're going to like this one. So the 49ers have scored 10 or fewer points. How many times in their last 45 games do you think that they've scored 10 or less?
2.
And he started both of them. And he started 3 games total. And 2 of them have been 10 points or less. They're the only 2 times in the last 4 years that the team has scored 10 points.
I just don't see it with him. Like I've said it for a while.
This number I don't want to take right now because I didn't get it a little bit higher. But at over a touchdown, I still need to see it with this team before I think they should be favored by a touchdown or more.
Kittle, they have offensive line issues. Kittle may not play. That helps the offensive line. No Mitchell.
They had 12 penalties for 99 yards, 5 penalties that were automatic first downs last week, 46% passing completion percentage, negative EPA, one of 5 teams to average under a point per drive in week 1. Elijah Mitchell got hurt, and he had been playing on every first and second down. I told you about the Jay Glazer report. Coach Shanahan and GM John Lynch asked 15 of the team leaders to make sure they all have Lance's back throughout the year. So that way players don't try to stir up. We want Jimmy G.
Yeah. And also something else, to remember, this team, how can I say that? They just didn't look right. You know what I mean?
I know.
There's just something about them. They just didn't look right.
I know. Now
it's Seahawks or nothing, but it's after the
spot,
Super Bowl, so it's a pass.
I will say the spot for San Francisco is fantastic.
Yeah.
You had a game that you played in a monsoon, so everybody thinks you look worse than you probably do. You're playing a team on a short week. They had their Super Bowl emotional game against Russ on a short week. The spot is incredible for San Fran, but I still cannot lay this number with this team. Anything over a touchdown, I would still tell you to lean Seattle.
Yep. I would be the same way, but I think sometimes the best bet is no bet. And
I agree.
No, this is a no bet for me.
They had after a good first half, they had 4 possessions in the second half. They had 44 total yards. Fumble, punt, end of game. Yep. Geno Smith was solid, 23 for 28, 195 yards, 2 touchdowns, no mistakes. Seattle defense made 2 goal line stands in the second half, and Denver had 2 total field goals on 4 trips to the red zone. They scored 6
Denver
points.
Did shoot themselves in the foot.
They did. Jamal Adams' knee injury, something to monitor. Rookie running back Walker as a full participant in practice. He hopes to play. How about this? Only NFC West team to win. First place, right?
First place. Let's go.
First place. Seattle. Anything else you want to mention on this one? Seattle.
No. It's going to be a good thing to kind of see what San Francisco does. I kind of want to see TDP, the guy they drafted in the 3rd round from LSU, worth a DFS punt. I mean, to win the Millionaire Maker, you have to be different. Everyone's going to go for Jeff Wilson. No one's going to go after the kid from LSU. I think, he's worth a punt, especially if they get up big. They're not going to want to run with Debo. They're not going to want to run with Jeff Wilson. They'll have the kid in there. So, I would, if he suits up, I would definitely look to play him.
Arizona versus the Raiders. This one is at 5.5 right now. And gosh, I feel like this is one that's an overreaction because this line has moved a lot from what it was before the season, right? It's like 3 points or so.
Yeah,
different.
It's 3 points.
Already.
I really want to get the 6. There was a time earlier where it was a 6.5 earlier today. Unfortunately, I missed that.
Jumped right back to like 5.5, 6. Yeah.
I missed that opportunity. So because of that, that's just I'm just waiting. If this gets back up to 6.5, I'll play at 6.5. That's kind of my buying point. Greg Dolch, he led the Cardinals in targets, routes, and played 91% of the snaps. What are we talking about?
So these two teams too, the Cardinals got their asses kicked by the Chiefs. You have a Raiders team that looked a little bit better on the scoreboard than they might have actually in that game against the Chargers, where their offense was fine. Their defense is not very good. Neither of these
29th in DVOA in defense. Carr graded the 31st best quarterback by PFF.
So that game was a little bit deceiving because it was more dominant for the Chargers than it may have looked.
I think there's a lot of emotion too for the Chargers team.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. You want to get it back. You want to,
It never felt like the Raiders were going to win that game. It was not at all
quote unquote revenge.
So and then the Cardinals. So the Cardinals, And the one thing about the Raiders is even when they're bad or even in games where they get crushed, they'll be able to move the ball a little bit. Like their offense is fine. They have some playmakers. They're just terrible defensively. I think Arizona will be able to move the ball here. I might look to play like an Arizona team total in this game also, because I don't know how much I trust them. Their center allowed 5 pressures on 35 pass blocking snaps. They didn't even have 300 total yards with garbage time last week. I mean, they looked so uninspired. Like all the stuff from the offseason was bad. But I mean, they only combined for 54 yards rushing. They couldn't run the ball because they were down early. And that same thing sort of happened to the Raiders. They were down, so they couldn't really stick to running. They were down 17-3. But Adams looked really good. 10 catches, 141 yards. He had 17 targets.
But I mean, is that because he looked good because Asante Samuel was there and not J.C. Jackson?
Yeah, it did.
So I would we got to remember that an interesting trend. Your boy Cliffy, 13-3-2, 81% against the spread as a road dog. You take the dog out. You take the home out. 18-8-2, 69% against the spread. And then, something kind of interesting. If you look between weeks 1 and weeks 9, and you just take out dog. If you just take out the dog, he is 64% against the spread. So this guy covers as a road dog, covers the first half of the season. If I get 6 or over, I'll be on the cards here.
That's my side. I mean, I'm definitely not on the Raiders side here. It's just the Raiders should not be favored by 5 or 6 points over anyone right now. No way.
Not at all.
Let's go.
There's no way.
Let's go Bengals, Cowboys. Both of these teams lost week 1, and Dallas ends up losing their quarterback. Dak is out. They're saying now 4 to 6 weeks. They did not put him on IR. Fractured throwing hand. Tyler Smith started at left tackle, filling in for Tyrone Smith. He did not play great. Pass protection, he allowed a sack and 2 quarterback hits and a hurry. Left guard Connor McGovern had to leave the game with an ankle injury. Lamb didn't look very good, but he did have 11 targets. He set a career high in route participation. He led the team with 26% target share, 30% of his looks on play action, and he did get 17 points last year with Cooper Rush in Cooper Rush's only start of 2021. Cooper Rush went 24 of 40 against the Vikings. He won that game. They won 20-16. He threw for 327 yards, 2 touchdowns, and an interception. Dallas was bad on third down in week 1. They were 3 for 15, and they could be without a starting left guard, safety, and defensive end. So some injury issues for them. Now on the flip side, you have the Bengals, who we could have had probably a 90-minute podcast just talking about that Bengals game from last week. Chase had 10 receptions on 16 targets, 129 yards, and a touchdown. Mixon, 27 carries. He had 7 more receptions, so 82 yards rushing, 63 receiving. Higgins had a concussion, so we'll monitor that if he's going to be able to play or not. I think
he's out. He's not out.
Okay.
He's not playing. No.
Offensive line, they were supposed to be a lot better. They went out and beefed it up in the offseason. They were really disappointing. Burrow was sacked 7 times, 2 of them in the first quarter. Steelers defenders had 12 quarterback hits. They were really bad in the run game.
I think it goes back to the issue with Burrow didn't play. It's going to take him a while to learn the system.
Yeah.
My bigger issue is I think a guy that's kind of being a little overlooked in everything is Zeke Elliott. I think Zeke's going to be able to run the ball against them. He averaged over 5 yards a carry against the Bucs. We can all agree the Bucs front 4 is better than the Bengals front 4.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to look to shorten the game. They're going to look to lean on that running. Anything over 7.5, I'm going to look to play the
Dallas.
Play Dallas here.
Me too.
I just don't think that I just don't think that it's.
Rush
I
didn't
think the
look that
Bengals are getting a little overvalued right now.
well. Rush didn't look that bad last week. I mean, everything that I'm going to say about the Bengals is 1,000% true. They should have won that game last week by 3 scores. But it's disappointing. Yeah, the run game. I was mentioning 31st in adjusted line yards, 31st in stuff rate, and a 20% success rate, which was 32nd. Pittsburgh just shut them down with a standard front seven. And it made them face the 3rd lowest rate of 8 or more defenders in the box week 1. They did it without even putting extra pressure out there. Burrow was bad. 4 interceptions, 5 turnovers, 1 for 5 on throws of 20-plus air yards. He took a sack that took him out of field goal range with 1:30 left in overtime. 7 sacks allowed. 12.2 adjusted sack rate, 5 turnovers and a loss. It actually, at one point, looked like Chase had the game-winning touchdown with about 3 minutes left in regulation. He was ruled short of the goal line, but they didn't challenge. He got in. If they would have challenged, he would have been in. It just poor coaching there. 32 first downs for the Bengals, 13 for Pittsburgh. 8 for 16 on 3rd down for the Bengals, 4 for 15 for Pittsburgh. 94 total plays for the Bengals. Pittsburgh ran 61. 432 total yards to 267. I mean, just unbelievable domination in the box score. Cincinnati was expected to win this game 61% of the time. 4 of their first 6 drives ended in turnovers. This was the worst game Joe Burrow has ever had from an efficiency perspective based on Pro Football Focus.
I mean, it's the Super Bowl hangover by a young team. What do you expect?
And how long does it last, right? I don't want to lay a touchdown on the road with them.
No, anything, like I said, anything over 7.5, I'm taking the Cowboys. Right now, this is just kind of a dead zone for me. I'm just gonna wait because I think there's gonna be more Bengals money that comes in.
Yep. Let's move. Anything else you want to hit on this one? Bengals, Cowboys?
Ezekiel Elliott, you look to play him. Pair him with Deontay Swift in your millionaire maker lineups.
Let's go Texans, Broncos. This game is around 10 right now. Broncos off the Monday night loss. The Texans off the tie. They played for the tie too. That's you and I were talking a little bit about that. That was a bummer because they came out playing really well. They're up by 17 entering the 4th quarter. Burkhead was the leading rusher and receiving back. Cooks had 7 catches on 12 targets for 82 yards. There's a 4th and 3 at midfield with 20 seconds left in overtime, and they punted for the tie. That just leaves a bad taste in your mouth. But they overachieve. Lovey is a good coach. He's just not going to be a great coach. He's not good at clock management. He can't take you to the promised land,
but he can make a bottom tier team average.
He can take the Bad News Bears and make them like an actual team,
A couple things that stuck out. I tried to warn everybody. There's certain red flags in life. If it's saying you're going to share carries with Rex Burkhead in week 1, that's kind of a red flag. Pierce, 29% of the snaps.
I'm ice cold on him now.
Yeah,
I'm ice cold on him.
Everything I'm hearing there, he's having a hard time picking up pass pro. He's going to be really scarce in the field because of that. Javonte Williams outsnapped Gordon 58% of the snaps to 41, but Gordon, outrushed him. 5 more rushes. Williams averaged 6 yards per carry. And the first half, he only got 2 carries in the second half. Just so he was averaging 6 yards a carry in the first half. In the second half, he only got 2 yards. And when I did this thing, my big thing on the Broncos, and I said in everything, I go, look, Nate Hackett has never called plays before. Nate Hackett has never been in charge of a game flow. Nate Hackett has never play design. He's never made in-game adjustments.
Now you have to do all those things at the same time.
Yeah, he's a little over his head. I kind of feel this is a little bit of a good spot. I think they're going to pound the ball. I think they're going to run the ball a lot. Texans, losing that game, man. I mean, that's just rough. You know,
That hurts.
we have the over 4.5. We have the money line there. You know, up 17 and lose at home. That's just a brutal look. But yeah, you know, goes back to the trend, teams not covering versus teams that did cover. This is just a lot of points. I'm gonna pass.
Me too. I'm staying away from this game. I mean, I don't like Denver laying that many points because I do think Texans are better. Like
They're
you
better
and I,
than people realize.
than people want to give them credit for. I think the Falcons and the Texans are two teams that we're going to end up on a lot this year because we were higher on them just coming in with their staffs and like we're higher on their floor, right?
No.
Their ceiling isn't incredible, but their floor is better than people want to give them credit for. So, yeah, Denver, you know, they had some weird stuff happen. They did lose safety Simmons placed on injured reserve. So he's out for at least 4 games. He's only missed a total of 6 snaps over the last 4 years.
Yeah.
And now he's going to be missing these next 4 games.
Think, you know, losing not Herbert. Geez, I'm sorry. Herbert's down in the game.
That's what I was going to say. He just went down. So I saw the same thing.
Shelby Harris, you know, I think that's a big blow to that interior of the line. I just, I don't know. I think there's a little bit of issues with Denver.
Me too.
Home game, though. I think
it's a bad way to start. This is a get right spot for them.
Yeah.
This has to be.
This is the game they should be able to win.
Back-to-back possessions, they fumble the ball on the 1-yard line.
Yeah, Denver just shot themselves in the foot.
They really did. Did.
That should have been a game they won. You know, I do feel this game is a little high.
Yeah.
I feel like the respect that Russ and this team gets is a little bit too much.
I agree.
There's no way I want to play this with the Texans
Me neither.
on the road. So I mean,
no.
You know, I'll pass. Maybe I'll use Javonte Williams and some DFS lineups, but that would be it.
Let's get to Sunday Night Football. The Bears at the Packers. So the Bears win in week 1 in that muck it up game. Herbert actually led the team in rushing yards despite only having half the carries of Montgomery. He also had both goal line carries and scored the team's only rushing touchdown. Kmet, get rid of him. He ran a route on under 70% of the Bears' pass plays and just one target.
That was another guy. I told everyone not to draft Kmet.
Not even worth it.
Kmet was drafted here because he's a local kid from Arlington Heights, where the new stadium is going. He can't separate, can't high point a ball. Montgomery, 66% of the snaps to Herbert's 29% of the snaps. Montgomery, twice as many touches. So I'd kind of pump the brakes a little bit.
I agree with you. That was my point, was that Herbert did this, but it's not as sustainable, right? He looks a little bit better on paper, but Montgomery is more of the steadying. I think this might be a nice Montgomery week this week too.
Also on top of that, so it's important to realize, like, Dillon's the in-between guy. Jones is the outside guy. With both tackles gone, you know, we need to read into this and understand that it's not going to be an Aaron Jones game. It's going to be.
So are they? What do you think? Are they both going to be gone again?
I haven't seen the practice reports.
Okay, so Bakhtiari. So for the Packers, Bakhtiari and Jenkins both missed last week, and they missed Lazard. So those are 3 big pieces on their offense that could really help improve the offense when they're back around and strengthen that offensive line a little bit and help them push the run. So it is sort of tough to really gauge this Packers team because, I mean, they didn't look great last week, but I don't know how many teams
they're missing Rodgers' best target and 2 starting offensive.
That's how many teams without
2 tackles, you know,
2 all-pro tackles and your number 1 target are going to look great in the first game of the year. I don't think many. So again, though, this Bears team with Fields could be a little bit feistier than people think. Like, their win last week was not a good win. We've talked about it. It was more of a San Francisco loss. Fields scrambled for 3 first downs. He forced 2 missed tackles, 2 big-time throws that resulted in passing touchdowns. 21% of the Bears' rushing attempts. Since 2015, 14 out of 16 quarterbacks that have had 15% or more of designed rushes, 14 out of 16 have finished as a top 10 option at the position in fantasy. So, you know, he could have a bad year, but just have that bulk of rushes, and that gives you a floor, right? That's Tebow, that's Hurts from just a lot of these guys that have a nice rushing.
I mean, I'm going to be looking at Lazard. You know, Lazard to score a touchdown. I saw a plus 220 in some books.
Yep.
I think Lucas Lazard, I got to see the reception props, but plus 220 to score a touchdown. I kind of like that one just because Rodgers is going to throw to who he's comfortable with. Rodgers last 3 seasons, 6-0 ATS against the Bears, 74% ATS against the Bears. He just covers against the Bears.
How about this one? 11-0 straight up in ATS in his last 11 games following a loss.
Yeah, I mean, it's just crazy what he's able to do. We gotta. This game is going to tell a lot, though.
Yeah.
I didn't like how he threw Watson on the bus. I didn't like how he his body language after the Watson.
I mean, the rookie wide open first play, that's a drop. That's a terrible way to start with a guy like Aaron Rodgers, who he doesn't seem like he's the greatest leader,
No.
So that's just a tough way to he feels like kind of like the older brother that might pick on you,
If the tackles are there, it's a big Aaron Jones game.
Yeah. If not, you're leaning more towards Dylan.
Correct.
Now, the Bears defense really seemed to be helped by the weather last week. They were dead last in early down percentage to gain a first down. That weather may not be there to help them this week.
No.
49ers had drives to the Bears 16 and the Bears 2. And in those drives, they got a combined 3 points.
Yeah.
But the offensive line played a lot better than projected. They started to roll Justin Fields out a little bit more and protect the line. He only did complete 8 passes. He needs to go through his progressions a little bit more, but at least they looked like they weren't trying to get the guy hurt like last year. I mean, they would run some plays that just did not make any sense. When we were looking at the offense they were running, they were at least giving this guy some chances to make a play or two.
Yep.
I'm staying away, though. I don't really have that strong opinion.
Away. I look at Lazard props, and then I'd look to see what the tackle situation is and look at running back props. That's the only thing I do here.
So we got a Monday doubleheader, so 2 final games for us to discuss. Man, I don't have a whole lot to say about Tennessee. They're a 10-point underdog on the road against Buffalo.
Oh, I have a lot to say.
And I mean, it's so weird that coming off of a number 1 seed last year in 1 week after a game they should have won, they're this big of an underdog. I understand Buffalo.
I really think it's because the Bills both
look so good. They did. And they're great. I think the Buffalo Bills are the best team in football.
Yep.
But wow, this still feels like 10. In the last couple of years, Tennessee's played Buffalo very well.
Yep. I'm just looking at right now. Allen 0-2 ATS as a favorite versus the Titans. Vrabel 69% as a dog, 56% as a road dog. This also fits into the thing with teams that didn't cover their next game. I think the Bills are just being a little bit overvalued, and Vrabel's kind of shown us this is the spot he thrives on. When everyone's down on him, everyone thinks they're done, and historically he's just showing that he's done this well. I like him here.
Can they just run the ball enough, right? Enough to keep this game close enough to where they can even backdoor cover again, right? They just have to be able to run the ball enough to keep running the ball, right? Yeah. Just so that way you're not down 3 scores or 4 scores to where now you can't really use Derrick Henry all that much.
Yeah, I think they just need to. They need to implement Hillard a little bit more in the old passing game too.
Did you lock this one in at 10?
I'm waiting. I think it's going to drift up. I think we can get 11. I think people are going to keep coming in on the Bills.
For our 5, I'm okay with 10 for us talking about it for one of our plays, though. If you are,
yeah, I am too.
I'm okay with taking this once it hits 10.
Yep.
Yeah, totally fine with that. So yeah, I mean, Buffalo. They're awesome, but they're one of the least fun teams to talk about in a game like this because, I mean, what are you going to say? Allen was awesome. He was 24 of 29, 3 touchdowns, 2 big time throws, 10 rushing yards or 10 rushes for 56 yards and a touchdown.
And I mean, he had some bad INTs. That'd be the one thing that stood out to me. They had some bad turnovers. That game could have been a lot worse. I mean, they had 4 bad turnovers. So I don't know. I think this is too much. Anything over 10, I think you have to lock in the Titans here.
Last 3 games for Allen, the Bills have scored 38 points a game, 16 touchdowns on 25 drives. And that's not counting the kneel down at the end of one of the last games. He's completed 80% of his passes, 71% on 3rd and 4th down attempts, and he's rushed for more than 55 yards in each game. That was from Football Morning in America. That's just
That's
like
pretty
video game stuff. Von Miller looked good too. I mean, he's got to keep him healthy and have him ready for the big games at the end of the year. He was motivated and he was hungry to play against the Rams. He had 2 sacks, 3 hurries from 25 pass rushing snaps. The defensive line, they never blitzed. And they sacked Stafford 7 times.
But I mean, I think that has to do more with your boys.
With the Rams. Well, like in the Rams, their offensive line will get better than it was, but they just have had Whitworth as the guy there forever. So it's going to take them, like, Noteboom is not horrible. One of the Rams offensive linemen were really bad. It was a bad hole, but they're just going to take a little, it was a bad matchup.
Noteboom banged up, didn't practice today. Your center didn't practice today.
So that was a bad matchup for them against the Bills team that has a defensive front that they went and put some money into in the offseason. Titans were up 13-0 in that game that they spit out too. We're on the Titans side. It looks like we both are at this number at double digits. Final game, second game on Monday night, Vikings, Eagles. This number has danced around quite a bit. So it went to 3, then all the way down to like 1, right? And now it's sort of setting at 2.
It's been like 1.5, 2. It's been all over the place. I locked it in. What did I get this bad boy at? I got it in at -2. Just my thought process is this. Cousins, 1 p.m. God, anything else he really struggles in. 19% ATS on Monday Night Football, 0-6 ATS is a dog in Monday Night Football. Vikings gave up 111 rushing yards on 16 attempts for 6.2 yards per carry versus a Packer team that didn't have not
They're
one,
2 linemen.
2 linemen. I think the Eagles are going to be able to run all over this team. This is one of those teams, like the Vikings were kind of that little it team.
I absolutely love this spot, Eric, for the Eagles. It's just everybody's talking about the Vikings. Everybody's buzzy on the Vikings. And people are looking at the Eagles game and the result of that game. And I think people are, maybe they didn't watch it or maybe they didn't realize that. I mean, the Eagles were pretty comfortable throughout that game.
Yeah.
This is going to be one of our 5 again, too. I think just A.J. Brown looked really good, 155 yards on
insane
10
and
receptions.
Also, you got Bradbury and you got Slay, who's going to be able to cover Justin Jefferson, who was non-existent after they after Alexander started guarding him. So yeah, I absolutely love the Eagles here.
So Gainwell looks like the clear number 2. He ran 5 times for 20 yards and then a touchdown, was tied for second most targets on the team, and saw more than half of the snaps on typical third downs. It was also playing a little on early downs. Yep. Yeah, AJ, he had that one down the sideline and then across the middle. He was all over the place. 3.97 yards per route run for AJ Brown. We had Hurts with 450 yards of total offense, 66 yards after contact, 6 missed tackles running the ball. The offensive line was good. They helped get 4 rushing touchdowns, all 5 created well on pass blocking, and only combined for 6 hurries and just 1 sack last week. They looked good. I like this spot quite a bit for Philly. I think people are really high on the Vikings team. That I like the way that they schemed things up last week, but as we're mentioning, it was more about they're playing a Packers team that was missing key players. Even as you hit on when we talked, Jair Alexander was someone that was a little bit disappointed in how they were covering Jefferson. He thought that he should have been able to cover him a little bit and he could have slowed him down. So I take more out of that game about maybe them catching a Packers team that was banged up, that wasn't ready, that had a few issues. I'm not as, you and I are both, we're not as high on Minnesota as everybody else is.
I hate Minnesota right now. I'm trying to make the playoff futures on them right now.
Okay, so let's
Minnesota did not make the playoffs is +170.
Okay, so let's get our 5 together, Eric. I know we've got the Panthers as 1, Panthers at +2, Titans at +10, and Eagles at -2. So those are 3 for sure that we can start with. What are other games that have felt like
you don't want the Saints?
Yeah, I'd rather stay away from that game. I'm okay. I'm okay if we have to come back to the Jags. I could be okay with that one.
The Jags +4 and the Lions -1.
Absolutely. Let's do those. Or do we? Yes, let's do those. Lions -1, Jags +4.
Yep.
I like that. So those are a 5. Panthers +2, Lions -1, Jags +4, Titans +10, Eagles -2 for our 5. 3-2 last week. Let's see if we can have a better week this week. And let's see if we can have some winning weeks all year long. Eric, my friend, I know you're not feeling all that well, so I appreciate you coming out and using those beautiful pipes of yours. We will be talking quite a bit over the next few days. You and I are recording this on Thursday night. We'll be talking on Friday, 6:00 p.m. Eastern time. We'll preview the five of the biggest college football games for the weekend. We'll also dish out a couple of our best bets. Then on Sunday, we'll be together for the Better Than Vegas big football preview for Sunday, 4th and Inches. You, me, and Kyle, the DFS Bachelor. We go through every single Sunday game, and we'll talk all about DFS stuff. We'll have prices there. We'll be able to have more injury information. We'll know what the final numbers are. So lots of conversations every week with you and me during football season. Tell everybody else what you have coming up this week.
Podcast hopefully will come out tomorrow if I can talk. Friday night, I'm going to be with you and Jim Friday night. Kyle and I are going to do a UFC preview Friday night, and Jim and I are going to preview some college football. Jim and I have been going live the morning of and just
doing spaces, right?
Yeah. We've been doing just answering people's questions on lines and what we think and injuries and everything. So we do that at 9 a.m. Eastern, excuse me.
Eric, buddy, thank you so much, man. It's so much fun talking football with you and going through each game, breaking them all down, picking your brain. Let's see if we can do well on these 5 this week. Anything else you want to mention before we get out of here?
Let's make some money, man. Let's keep the ball rolling, dude.
Let's do it. Week 2 coming up. We're watching this Thursday night football game that's going down to the wire right now.
Chargers are within the number.
Yeah, though. Chargers are covering right now. So, and the Chiefs don't have any motivation to try to score right here. So if you play the Chargers, you're probably going to be covering, it looks like, unless we go to overtime right now. So 27-24, it's always fun looking at these. But for me, I think I'm like you. I like watching the game afterwards anyways. So I don't really have a problem missing games live because I'm going to go back and do my work and rewatch the game, rewatch the plays and take all my notes and stuff anyway. So
yeah, that's the way you have to do it. Like I'll red zone it and then I'll rewatch it.
Yep.
Like I didn't even watch the Monday night game.
Yeah, most of them I'm not watching.
I didn't even watch that live. So.
Yeah, like I'm doing work, I'm recording. Sometimes I've got other stuff going on. I much prefer being able to watch them sort of late at night on Game Pass and taking the commercials and all that out. Eric, buddy, the marathon has just started of the NFL season. Thank you again for all your help and hope you feel a little bit better tomorrow.
Thanks, man. We'll talk soon.
Don't go anywhere, folks. A lot more to come on That's What G Said podcast. And if you're watching on social media, thanks so much. We're going to post these football segments every week. That way you can see us kind of go through the lines and stuff and look at all the numbers. So good luck at everything this weekend and lots more.